Let's go. All right, there we go. I like when the waves go like that. Hi. Uh, we're gonna be reading from Fight for Freedom. Okay. I don't think I've read from this. I think because I had videos up and then I took them down and started all over. So I'm sorry I'm coming to you so late. First off, but I was at the museum today. The one museum in New York I hadn't been to yet, the American Museum of Natural History. I finally went, got a free pass using my library card, and was able to see all the general admission things. Really nice museum. Okay, it doesn't beat the one in Detroit, but and the Rise exhibit. The Rise exhibit is the best exhibit. And then there was a Native American. There was a museum. I can't remember if we were in Connecticut. I have to find out where you were in a Native American village and they had life-size people and the sounds and you walked through the village. That would probably be second best. I like things where you can walk through and you're in it. Interactive, I guess. Physical people. Not physical. Well, statues, people doing the different things, and you walk through the village. It's nice. But that Rise one in Detroit, man, that thing blew me away. If I had some money, I'd move there just to be around that thing and probably go once a month just to see it, to remind myself, because you need reminders of where we are. I went to Jamaica for an event and found this book in the hotel, really good book, and we had a good time. When I go places, it's all about the people I'm with. So I was married then, and always with my wife is a great time. But the thing about going to countries, seems to me, everywhere you go, where black people are, they're colonized. And I'm just sick of seeing it. So I have a passport and I keep it active, but I don't know. I just don't. Well, too poor to travel now. But even if I had money, I'm not sure. It's just, you just tired of seeing black colonized people. Now, my wife went to Africa. She went alone. We didn't have the resources to go, both of us to go. But I wasn't really pushing it because, again, she went to South Africa and she went to Ghana, so she went twice. And I think the South African trip is the one where she said she's glad I didn't go. Because, again, she went through some colonizing stuff. But let's get to the reading. Fight for Freedom. The Destruction of Slavery in Jamaica. And I'm going to read. Let's start from chapter 1, page 1. Invasion. It's about the Arawaks. There was an Indian who had known no change, who strayed content along a sunlit beach. Gathering shells, he heard a sudden strange, commingled noise, looked up and gasped for speech. For in the bay, where nothing was before, moved on the sea by magic huge canoes, with bellying cloth and on poles, and not one oar, and flattering colored signs and clamoring crews. Sir John Squire. A big vessel with masts and sails came into the bay, then another and another. They were bigger than any seagoing craft the Arawaks of Jamaica had ever seen. Men on the decks lowered small boats into the water, and some of them climbed in and began rowing towards land. By the way, when you see these large ships, and in New York, you can go see some of the warships. Even today, if I saw that coming, I saw that big thing coming, and I was in a small country, it would overwhelm me. The Arawaks armed themselves and pushed their canoes into the sea. Some instinct warned them to drive the strangers off. They paddled out, shouting and brandishing their weapons. The strange men in boats rowed back to the big vessels as fast as they could and got on board. Their leader, Christopher Columbus, gave the order to pull up anchor and sail out of the bay, which he had decided to call Santa Gloria, renaming stuff, known today as St. Anne's Bay. He wasn't ready to fight yet. He just wanted food and water. The 3 Spanish ships headed west and came to another bay, which Columbus, who liked to give names, called Puerto Bueno. The news of their arrival on the north coast must have sped ahead of them, for the beach was teeming with armed Arawaks. They swarmed out in canoes, shouting war cries, again obeying their instinct to drive off the strangers. But this time Columbus decided not to run. He had been at sea for about 8 days since leaving the coast of Cuba on May 3rd, 1494. And much of the time the weather had been rough. His vessels, Nina, San Juan, and Caldera, were battered, and he badly needed fresh water and food. So he ordered a few blank shots to be fired from the Lombard guns, and the Arawaks, racing toward the vessels in their swift canoes, were shocked at the sudden explosions. They turned and fled back to shore. Columbus sent off a party armed with crossbows. They took along a huge, wicked-looking dog on a leash. When the Spaniards landed, the Arawaks attacked with stones and spears, and the landing party retaliated with their crossbows, bringing down about a dozen of the warriors. Then they loosed the big dog, which leapt in pursuit of the retreating Arawaks. The Arawaks kept dogs, but they were tiny creatures, which didn't even bark. They had never seen such a raging, fierce-eyed monster. The big brute caught up with them, sank his teeth into several of the warriors, and drove terror into the hearts of all. This was too much. First the smoke, flame, and loud explosions of the guns, then the deadly crossbow darts. And now, this beast from the unknown. All the fight was knocked out of the Arawaks, and they came quietly back to the beach, begging for mercy and bringing gifts of cassava bread and water. The Spaniards asked if they had any gold, and they shook their heads. They had none. Columbus sailed away and left behind a people stunned by strange new implements of war with which they had been unable to cope. It was the beginning of the end for the Arawaks. Their instinct to drive off the Spaniards had been right, but they lacked the power, the vigor, the force. It is said that among the men who were with Columbus at Santa Gloria in 1494 was Juan de Esquivel of Seville, who was destined to set in motion the destruction of the Arawaks of Jamaica. 9 years later, May and June of 1503, during his 4th voyage to the New World, Columbus was beating against the wind eastward along the Cuban coast, trying to reach Hispaniola, but it was no good. His 2 ships, La Capitana and Santiago, were riddled with worms and leaking badly. His men were hungry and exhausted for pumping day and night. The water was rising steadily in the holds. He gave up the fight and turned downwind towards Jamaica. On the night of June 22nd, he reached the north coast, crept past Puerto Bueno, and on June 25th, at high tide, steered into his beautiful Santa Gloria, with the decks of La Capitina and Santiago almost awash. The sinking ships were driven aground side by side and propped up with supports. This time, no Arawaks came to chase them away. Columbus wanted to avoid trouble, forbade his men to go ashore without permission. They all lived under palm leaf shelters on the decks of the beach ships. Food was a major problem. There was a big Arawak village nearby, and the Spaniards traded glass beads, lace points, and hawk's bells with the Arawaks for cassava bread, fish, maize, and rodents. The Spaniards ate a lot. One ate as much as 20 Arawaks, it was said. Soon the Arawaks had acquired enough lace points, flash beads, and hawksbells. They got tired of feeding the voracious strangers. Fortunately, Columbus saw in his almanac that an eclipse of the moon was due on the last night of February 1504. It was almost time for it. He told the Arawaks that God was angry with them for cutting off the food supply and would show his displeasure by making the moon disappear. When the eclipse began, the Arawaks were terrified and begged Columbus to intercede for them. He went into his cabin, and when the eclipse was about to end, returned and told them that he had assured God that they would resume the food supply, and God had agreed to restore the moon. The shadow left the moon soon after the Spaniards had no more trouble getting food. Once again, Spanish technology, quote unquote, had stunned and defeated the Arawaks. After many adventures, a caravel, this sounds like, why wouldn't you just go and take it after you beat them the first time? It's weird. After many adventures, a caravel arrived from Santo Domingo and rescued Columbus and his men on June 28, 1504. A year and 5 days after they had beached their ships. Damn, that's rough. You gotta be with these monsters for a year. It was the longest time that Columbus was spent at any place in the New World. Okay, we'll pick up next time. Talking about the Arawaks. Yeah, we'll pick up next time talking about the Arawaks. Let's see, I need something to hold my place. I have so many book holders. But here you see basic invasion and destruction of a peaceful people. It still happens to this day. Even peaceful spirited people today, you know for yourself, if you're peaceful, people are always trying you, always encroaching on you. I try to be peaceful, and I am a peaceful person and a just person and an upright person, but it's some savage behavior, man, and you gotta kind of push people back sometimes, especially nowadays. Because people just don't understand civility anymore. Not in this society. Or not in New York anyway. So, that was what, happened to the Arawaks. What happened to almost all the people on this planet. And we're still colonized. Our ancestors are still ruled by people whose ancestors were the one who colonized our ancestors. They just passed down the family business all the way down the line. And so we'll see. It's all kind of breaking down now. But now the question is, do we have enough left in us? Do we have enough mental power left? Do we have enough emotional stability left to muster up the energy to build a new kind of society that's more sane and more humane? That's always the question for me. And it's not being answered. It can go either way. It's a 50-50 shot at this point. And to be honest with you, it's leaning towards complete savagery and breakdown. But there's always a chance. There's always a chance. These next few years are very important for all of us. That's why I created the Connaissance Center. We need institutions that could be a part of the new sane society, social order. But how that goes is really up to you all. I'm providing my part of it. I'm providing the space. I'm providing the content. I'm providing the information. I'm also providing content for people who want to be producers, who want to be singers and record producers. I'm providing quality content. It's my part. You all have to pick it up. You have to support it. You have to use it. I'm providing content for people to homeschool if you want, or at least create study groups for your children if you want. You have to use it. If you don't, then what you're saying is, no, I want to stay colonized, but guess what? They don't need you anymore. They don't need people anymore. So to stay in a colonized position means you're just going to be left out. And if you're outside of things, if you have no independence, if you have no self-determination, they're going to have the right to take us off this planet. At least our physical bodies. So this is a lot that we have to think about. We have to look at the positions that we're in, and we have to think about how we got here. And remember that the same people who destroyed the Arawaks, the same type of people who are here now running things, or call themselves running things. You know how to support the channel. You know how to support the podcast. You can give directly. You can hit the links, or you can become a sponsor. Until next time, take care of yourselves and be safe.